I'm Elliot Reeves, this is Kaypee, and you're watching The Elliot Reeves Show.
Thanks for the introduction, man.
Dude, short
and sweet.
Well, it is. I've been playing around with this whole sort of intro piece, and then I was like, this is Elliot Reeves, founder of Inspired Edinburgh, and, creator of The Elliot Reeves Show, and it was like, whoa, what just works? And then, I don't know, I can't even remember which episode it was, but I was just like, yeah, I'll just try that, and I quite liked it.
I'm still trying to find, my introduction.
Your flavour.
Because initially it was like, it's me, KP, but I end up sounded like Super Mario. And I was like, I can't do that. It's a me, a KP. And it's kind of somewhat sort of racial, but not really. But,
racial? Oh, Jesus.
One, I'm not a plumber. Two, I'm not super either. So.
Oh, I see where you're going with
or
that.
Italian.
Yeah.
It's not an Italian name.
Do you think a show needs an intro?
I don't know. I think there's some bigger podcasts that don't do introductions, and it feels like you've just joined the conversation. It works for some people, but for me, I think for me personally in my head, for me to say, this is the beginning of the show, let's go. But I'm still trying to find my thing.
Okay.
It's a me.
It's a me.
KP.
I love that. I think you should just go for it.
I might do it on my social media from now on, just
definitely.
be my videos.
Yeah,
I've seen you start posting some videos now of yourself.
Yeah, I did one the other day actually. So it was on the back of a conversation that I had with somebody, and I've been kicking around the idea of creating video, so I suppose personal branded video content for a long time, but it's just like, what I could speak about a bunch of stuff, but what is the stuff that is actually going to add value to people, and what's the stuff that people really wanted to hear about? And it's kind of finding that. So yeah, I just posted a video like, has anyone got anything they want to hear about? Because I've got all this knowledge and stuff that I could be sharing, and yet I'm just sort of sitting on it. Not to try and sound like egotistical, like I'm some sort of sagacious fountain of wisdom, but 3 years of conversation and doing this stuff, you learn stuff in the process. So.
It's good that you're at that point now where you can sort of ask your audience what they want to hear. Because there are a lot of people that do that sort of way ahead of time, and then they have no response just because they don't have the audience yet. And then it's a big step to ask, what do you want to hear? And then have people say, look, we want this. But if you're met with deaf ears, you're just going to be like, I look like a fool.
Well, there is that, but there's also when is
the... Not talking from experience. Sorry.
when is the optimal time to engage with the people that are listening? I feel as though I probably should have been doing it 2 years ago, but it just wasn't it didn't feel like the right time to be doing it. Whereas now I'm just a bit how do I get more people sort of engaged with the stuff that I'm doing as well? It's
such tricky line is the engagement aspect of anything you're doing with social media. And it's tough. It's a tough thing. I think it's like a snowball effect though. Once you start getting the ball rolling, it accumulates. But up until that point, it is who's the guy that pushes the rock up the hill? The famous fable or story or...
Yep.
You know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah. It's not Euripides.
That guy.
Yeah.
He was probably Greek.
Yeah. It's a very Greek-sounding name. I can visualize it. I'll probably get it middle of the conversation.
Cool.
I'll need to say, but
shout out when you get the answer.
That begins with an S. If people are watching the shouting,
I know someone who will be listening to this and they'll be shouting the name.
I know it as well,
but that's what it can feel like until you start getting the ball rolling.
Yes,
literally,
totally. So, man, I mean, we first, I suppose, officially met when I was on your show.
Mm-hmm.
What was your? I mean, this is a big question, and there's probably a lot to it. But what was your path into podcasting?
Mm-hmm. I think we spoke about it a little bit on my show. So if anyone wants to listen to the I Am Kaypee podcast,
sure, of
go
course.
ahead. But,
yeah, absolutely. I'll put links in all the description-y stuff and tag you and whatnot, so they can find you easily enough if they want to.
Generally, it came from just being annoying people on nights out and being drunk and just asking all these questions and just being interested in people doing different stuff and having different jobs and different views on things, because I didn't get any of that interaction when I was younger.
Why is that?
I'm not sure. Like, I think I came from a very working class background.
Okay.
And it just wasn't something that was nurtured. And I was always inquisitive when I was younger, but I never fully got to explore it just because of where I was coming from. And that's no slight on my parents or whatever. That's just how it was, and they did the best that they could. And as I got into my sort of early 20s, I just was becoming more curious, and just annoying people when I was out drinking, just asking all sorts of questions. And a guest I had on the show, who's one of my friends, Dave, he has his own podcast. I think it was OK Hun, it's called. It's sort of coming from the sort of left-wing angle. Great guy, very intelligent, one of my most intelligent friends, and I would always have these long conversations with him after a night out, and I think that just led into, naturally, when I started doing mixed martial arts, I think those two things were just one and the same thing, like podcasting, listening to podcasts, and doing MMA, and eventually I was like, well, I could do this. I know a bunch of people that are really interesting. They have stories, and I like talking. So
yeah,
that's what it came down to. Yeah.
So I can relate to having the desire to start, but what were the steps that you took to actually get going?
Oh God, I started like 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
I know. Yeah. I'm an old podcast man. Same with you.
Yeah.
But I took a break.
Okay.
It just, I don't know how I actually got going. That's a good question. I think I was in a relationship at the time, and it was the girl I was with was very creative. She was an artist, and I was doing my day job, and I just wanted to have that similar creative outlet. Even after doing MMA, I still wanted to have a creative streak in me, because I did music growing up, and then eventually that kind of fell at the wayside, and then work, compounds you, and you just want to be creative. And I just started accumulating bits and bobs of tech, so like my mixer, microphone, but it was still it was in the air at that point. It wasn't really something that I was going to do. It was more, that feeling you get when you start accumulating good gear. That's what it was just initially. Like, it was like, oh,
just
get
buying
this.
Bits and pieces.
But I never really thought I was going to go through with it.
Okay.
And then eventually, I think she was my first guest on the first episode, and then, but it just came about. We were just sitting around one night, and then I was like, I think I might record an episode tonight. Yeah, just like randomly. And then that's how it came to. And then the second episode, it was one of my friends who is a creationalist, Kenny. I know him through MMA. And he's the only person I've ever met that's a real life creationalist. And I had him on, and it was, it just snowballed from there. It's been a good experience so far, though. There's not anything, I wouldn't say I've had any negative experiences so far.
Really?
But yeah, like I try and, like, I don't think my show's big enough yet for me to get any sort of negative feedback, but I tend to stay away from anything that's like that. There's good stuff like constructive feedback where you can make your show better, obviously, but just the sort of stuff that means nothing to you, it just goes over my head. Like, I'm naturally just drawing it out.
Okay.
Have you ever had any bad feedback?
Yeah. No, but just like trolls and like hate comments. Yeah, quite a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
What? Explain.
The Dan Pena episode brought out a lot of people that would just write like abusive comments.
In what way?
You name it, man. Just like really, acerbic, nasty, critical things about like me, about the show. Just all sorts of stuff.
Right. Okay.
This isn't necessarily for everyone, but I'll delete comments like that I'm not.
Yeah.
That I'm just, it's pure. It's like, that could potentially be considered a hate crime.
Right. Okay.
I'm just like, I'm not willing to like have that. I'm just basically putting out conversations into the world, and I don't expect fucking insults and like hate directed at me.
Dave
I'm sorry.
69031.
Yeah, well, it's always these twats,
eggs,
fucking unidentified arseholes on the internet.
The power of anonymity. That is a hard one to say. Anyway, but that really brings out either the good in people or the worst in people.
Yeah, well, from my experience, mostly the worst. If you're not going to put your own picture on a profile, then you've probably got something to hide.
It's the least you could probably do as well.
Yeah, and the fact that you've got some ludicrous handle indicates that your mission in life is just to be a moron. But anyway, man, that's like I
guess with Inspired Edinburgh, with it being a more professional show, that you're probably best just to delete those type of things from it. If it was just a normal podcast where it's like a bunch of people shooting the shit, you can kind of get the banter that's going on. But if you're doing Inspired, which is it's really professional.
Well, it's the way that I look at it is a TV show that's not on telly. It's a TV. It's an online talk show like any sort of like television program, but it's just hosted on YouTube, and the main reason for that is just simply convenience. It doesn't cost you anything to upload. It just sort of sits there. You can then link from that to your website and distribute accordingly. What I've thought about doing is actually just putting all the episodes onto Vimeo.
Right, okay.
But
is it a good platform?
Vimeo?
Yeah.
Depends what your objective is. Okay. So
porn.
I don't think so. It's predominantly filmmakers and people that produce like beautiful and stunning and really story-led cinematic content. So like, I don't know if my things don't really fit terribly well on that, but I think that the quality of the individuals, because it's a paid platform, there's probably not for viewers, but from a hosting perspective. So there's more barrier to entry and there's more sort of particularness around it. Yeah, I've thought about that. I thought about doing that. I might still do that.
Yeah, I think I uploaded one episode to Vimeo a while ago, but I didn't.
The problem is no one's there to watch your stuff.
Yeah.
If you want people to actually watch it, then you have to have really high website traffic or engagement, or it's YouTube.
Yeah.
But the problem is on YouTube, you get a lot of people that are unsavory, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's totally it. It's like the Twitter of video, you could say. Do you mess around with Twitter much?
That's about all I do with Twitter. Mess around with it. Again, like it's a really hard one. I don't use it in the way, and I'm aware of it. I don't use it in the way that it is intended, which is really to have micro conversations with people. So like, you can handle the person like at Gary V. What do you think about social media marketing today? And he'll probably write back, and it's like that's the sort of what I do is actually probably more like spam. I'm just like, here's an episode, go watch it. Here's a thing I did, go watch it.
Do you think that affects your views or
100%.
interact? Really?
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah. Well, people want to be treated like humans and spoken to and all that good stuff. And, there's definitely a time and a place for it. It's just part of it's a convenience thing that if you've got a Twitter audience, there's undoubtedly some people that will, watch your stuff or want to watch it. And so those are the people that will engage.
It's such a hard landscape to navigate successfully.
Yeah, it is a bit. It's understanding the platforms and the people that are on the platforms.
Yeah.
I think is a big part of it.
Because everyone is very different from each other.
Yeah,
so YouTube
different.
Is a thing in itself. Facebook still is different from all the others. And then you have Twitter, which is just I find it so hard to navigate.
Do you?
Yeah. I'm kind of somewhat like you, where in a sense, spam my episodes, and then I'm just hashtagging Edinburgh and everything. That's it. I usually get a retweet, and that's it.
What's your favorite social media platform?
Maybe not my most favorite, but the one that gets me a lot of interactions is Facebook.
Yeah,
and it's frustrating because I don't want it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, not that there's anything wrong with it, but I just would prefer it if it was to do with sort of Instagram and Twitter and YouTube. I feel, but those Facebook, there's just something a little bit strange about it for me. Because when I would stream my videos on YouTube, I got so many views and so many interactions.
Really?
And then I just stopped doing it. I don't know. I felt like it detracted from my traffic going to YouTube and actually downloading the podcast. So I just stopped doing it, which is, I don't know.
This is a really interesting part. So when you upload your episodes, what is your objective? What do you want people to do? Would you rather they listened to the podcast or watched the video?
Obviously,
and why?
Obviously, everyone wants both out of a podcast generally. You know, when you're doing I think me personally, it would be the downloads aspect.
Podcast.
Yeah, podcast and people just listening to it. I think there's a weird, for people in the UK especially, there's a sort of weird absence of views from people on YouTube from the UK. There's not the same like people there watching as there are in different countries, especially if you're like a podcast from the UK. It generally, it builds over time, but initially it's very hard, I think. So for me personally, I think that the downloads aspect, because it's sort of worldwide as well, and people can access it any time. Like if you're on YouTube, you have to be sitting down somewhere to watch it. Whereas podcasting, the audio side is limitless and where you can listen to it. Unless you're somewhere weird, like a library or something.
Yeah. But do you think people lose out from not having the visual experience?
Maybe, but I think your show, like Inspired, is more visual based.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of podcasts don't offer anything extra with the YouTube side of it visually, like other than the audio.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times, because how many podcasts have you watched on YouTube and it's just like, I could easily just listen to this and it'd be the same effect.
Ooh. So the thing is, though, for me, like when you are only listening to something, you're having to create the visual images yourself, because your brain processes in images.
Yeah.
So like if I'm only listening to it, I'm imagining, I guess, so there's this like fake layer of visual imagery going on in my head as to what it's probably like, which maybe adds some interest. But generally, like if there is an option to watch it, I will always watch it.
Right. Okay.
100%.
I think you're somewhat of an exception.
based on what?
You're male. You're a white male. I'm joking.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, what statistics do you have in order to back up the fact that people would listen to it rather than watch it?
Do you analyze your statistics and then try and utilize them for your show? Is that something that you...
In what sense?
Say, like, you get feedback that this is 80% males that are watching this.
100% male, this is on YouTube, 100% male, 100% between 35 and 44 for the last 28 days. Okay. So I've nailed my customer avatar in that regard.
Yeah.
I get people quite a lot saying, like, why don't you have more women on the show?
Yeah.
Because no women are watching it.
Yeah.
I know it's a double-edged sword. If I had 15 women in a row watching, then it might shift the needle. But the fact is, YouTube as a platform is male dominated. It's 20 to 30. That's what I'm sort of catering to.
Do you think, maybe just playing devil's advocate somewhat, do you think if you brought on a female, then that would change, that there'd be more females watching?
I mean, yeah, possibly. But I mean, I have had female guests, and I have got female guests that are coming on, and whatnot. But it's like the ratio is sort of limited.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably like 7 or 8 to 1.
Right, really?
Male versus female. I would think so.
That's crazy.
You think so?
It's a man's world.
It's not, but it's not like an sort of
the patriarchy at work.
It's not like a misogynistic
yes,
thing.
you are.
It honestly isn't.
You're
cisgendered. It's really not. It's just there seems to be more men with sort of like personal brands and public figure profiles than there are women, I would say. And I don't mean that in any way disparaging, but I think it's easier from an interviewer or a podcast host's perspective to find male guests than it is female guests.
So what you're saying is the service you're providing doesn't apply to women on Instagram shaking their ass?
Well, geez, yeah. Basically, man. That's Instagram for that reason is why I really don't like it that much.
Do you use Instagram?
Yeah. I don't like it though.
I quite like it. I like
it's alright.
I think
it encourages that stuff though.
It's so hard I generally don't look through, you know how you get that section where the search icon and it shows you just like random videos from Instagram. I try not to interact with it, but it's just mainly mine's Staffordshire Bull Terriers because I follow a lot of Staffordshire Bull Terrier pages on Instagram.
Why?
I think my dad has a Staffy. I just love them. They're awesome dogs. So every time I go on, it's like some random girl shaking her ass and then a bunch of Staffies.
Yeah.
Not that I'm looking at girls shaking their asses. What is with this whole posing thing with sticking your ass out on? I mean, do you think archaeologists are going to look in 100 years' time and be like, all these women had severe lower back issues. What is going on? And then it's not real. It's not something that's real.
I know.
But then most of online is not real either.
Well, I think the world's broken. Is what I think.
Physically.
Yeah, I think the world's broken and people are just pursuing things that aren't great.
I've seen people on Instagram just provide nothing other than pictures of them doing squats at the gym. They seem to not do any other exercises at the gym. I've never seen them do pull-ups. I've never seen them do clean and jerk. It's always squats, pages and pages and pages of squats. And that's how they make their money.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
they found their niche and they're doubling and tripling down on it.
But there was a girl I was sort of following through it. Just because I was following fitness on Instagram initially. There was a girl from Edinburgh that I was following on it, and I think she started off something like 500 followers, and over the last 6 months she's went up to 50k.
Wow.
And she's only posting pictures of her squatting.
Yeah. I don't know. Who's following that?
I know. Men.
Probably.
Do you think women follow it?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe for inspiration or for, to follow an influencer.
Yeah. Oh, don't get me started.
Yeah.
Let's say influencer. What do you influence?
Yeah,
hopefully your
precisely.
life, your own life.
I know, precisely. I want to ask you a question. What's your biography?
My biog?
Your bio. Where did it all begin and how did you get to where you are?
Well, my dad and mum had sex. I think life starts at conception.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those.
Where were you born?
In a hospital.
In what city?
I was born in Dundee, Scotland.
You were born in Dundee?
I was supposed to be born in a little town beside it called Arbroath.
Okay.
But there were some complications. The cord was wrapped around my neck. Jesus. So then I had to be rushed to Dundee, which is the bigger hospital. And then, and I've been sort of stupid ever since.
Where did you grow up?
All over. I moved around a bunch as a kid.
Yeah?
Yeah, but mostly over Scotland, but I lived everywhere. As far as Irvine, down on the west coast, southwest coast. And then up by Dundee, but just all around those areas. I don't know why we moved so
I
much.
was going to say, why were you moving so much?
I think my dad was working for a lot of farmers. Like, he would move around from farm to farm.
What was he doing?
Just like, initially it was like farm work. The Blairgowrie, where I come from, is famous for berries. Like,
Is that right?
Raspberries is the perfect ecosystem. It's a microclimate for raspberries and berries. So he came up from Glasgow, because that was like the Glaswegian hotspot. They would come up there for the summer, pick, and then make loads of money, and then go home down to Glasgow. But a lot of Glaswegians ended up staying in Blairgowrie, this little town, and that's how he met my mum. She was like from there, and her dad was a farmer, and then that's all she wrote.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was moving around from farm to farm, and then eventually he started doing a bit of gardening, and then he became the head gardener at the Kinloch House Hotel, which is a massive Victorian era walled garden hotel.
That's your namesake.
Yeah. It's not the same.
It's not yours.
Nah. What would happen was he restored this Victorian era walled garden, and then he'd have the guests coming up to the back, and then they'd be like, "Oh, are you the boss here?" And he's like, "No. Do you think I'd be breaking my back in the garden if that was it?" So,
okay.
But it won like a huge amount of awards. He was on American television. There was a TV show called Victory Walled Gardens, and they did a big bit on it. You know, they came over here and filmed it.
Oh wow!
Some VHS somewhere, if people still have VHS.
I'm sure if people watching would even know what a VHS was. So you moved around a lot when you were young. Does that mean moving school a lot?
Yeah, man.
Yeah?
That was a huge one. I think maybe the last count before I sort of settled down a bit more was sort of 17 times we moved, like house, from when I was born till when I was probably 25. Yeah.
Wow.
And predominantly in just like a sort of small area. And then we went up and down from Ayrshire. I know. We obviously got bored a lot, I think, so... I moved schools so many times, and then eventually I settled on this tiny little village school. There was only 35 people in my whole school, and there was only one guy in my class, and it was me.
Yeah, right.
It made sports day the easiest thing ever. I used to trounce people at sports day.
Wow. How does that affect your like socialization and... Yeah.
It definitely had an effect on it growing up, in terms of, it's the usual story, you know, when you go from a new place, when you're in amongst new friends, you're always trying to like be funny. Not that I'm funny. You're always trying to impress, somewhat, but not like, you know, like flexing a bicep or anything, but just, you know, with your personality, and it's a mechanism. It's like a coping mechanism for moving around a lot. When you get to new friends, you just want to throw it all out there, you know, and people to see that you're just a good guy or whatever. But it can be overbearing. Like, I remember as I got older and I started to realize that my personality was a bit overbearing for some people, that because I'll be the same way with someone that I've known for 2 minutes and someone who I've known for like 15 years, you know, but that's a bit too much for some people. And I start to just reel it back a little bit, and it's, I hope I'm on top of it, but that's definitely something that affected me growing up.
What would be wrong with that?
The overbearingness?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think when people didn't take it well, that affected me, if you know what I'm saying. Like, because I was...
In what way were people, like, adversely, you know, impacted by it?
No, you just hear things like, oh, he's a bit much or whatever. Like, when I was maybe between the ages of 18 and 21, and I think as someone who overthinks a lot, maybe I didn't think I was overthinking at the time, because you're young, you don't realise these are the things that you do.
Mm-hmm.
But when you hear these things, that you take it like sort of somewhat personally, and you're trying to correct it, but then that's the worst thing when you're trying to be like over the top nice as well. It's just not.
Yeah.
What about you? Did you grow up in Edinburgh all your days?
Yeah, man. I've been Mr. Edinburgh in my entire life. I've never really left the place.
That's crazy.
It's so hard for me to relate to what it would be like to just be like constantly on the move. Like there's quite a high degree of sort of, I guess, uncertainty.
Yeah.
Or just like variety and change, which can either, I guess, I don't know how do you think that's affected you?
I think it did initially, but I've corrected the course as much as I can.
Yeah.
You know, growing up, like I was saying before, you never realize these things do have an effect on you. But then when you get to the age where you're aware, you become self-aware, you know, and then, I don't know, some people do. I think one of the big things that helped me actually was the Joe Rogan podcast, just because when I was talking earlier about how I came to be a podcaster, I was having these conversations with friends because I didn't grow up having them. And I think one of the benefits for me was the Joe Rogan podcast, because I was having these conversations in my head with Joe. You know, I was listening to the show and then I was interested in all this stuff. I was so inspired by it and his sort of philosophy at the same time, you know, and I think that made me very self-aware, and I tried to sort of correct the ship as much as I could. You know, no one's going to be perfect.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a big inspiration for me.
So at what, because I know that you moved abroad, at what point did you move and what was the reason for doing that?
I was 16 when I moved to America. It was Louisiana, down the road, far south below New Orleans.
Right,
so we stayed on a fishing village, Wyclosky it's called.
So you moved with your parents?
My dad.
Yeah?
He married this American lady.
Was he gardening in the States?
No, he was working on an oyster boat.
What?
Yep.
Really?
Yep. Yeah, it was sort of fantastical, but it was a proper fishing village. Our whole driveway was made of crushed up oyster shells. That's how ghetto it was. Like a fishing version of ghetto, you know.
Yeah.
And our house was on stilts as well. But yeah, I was 16 when I went over there. My dad had been with this lady who was American, and she'd been in Scotland, and they got married after 2 years, and then eventually she wanted to move back to Louisiana. Yeah.
Jeez, did you want to go?
16-year-old me, who was a complete skater kid and into heavy metal music.
Were you?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I watched so much like pop punk videos before I went, and I was like, I'm going to be this kid, you know, I'm going to skate around, I'm going to marry Avril Lavigne, and, you know, I'm going to be her skater boy. I can't do that in Scotland, can I? So I was like, I'm there. But a complete flip of personality. When I got there, I got so interested in American football that I shaved all my hair off, started wearing preppy clothes, and then eventually made my way onto the team.
Yeah.
Yep. And I got called a jock as well.
Were you a jock?
Yeah. No, not really. But by proxy, like, by, you know, everyone just called you a jock if you were wearing a football shirt.
Yeah. Jeez, what a culture shock. It's a big change.
I was just at the sort of age where it was okay for me. Like, I could adapt. 16, still pretty. Mentally, I was probably about 8 at that time, maybe. So I was fine. But my dad, it was hard on my dad. Yeah. You know, because he was there in Scotland for, I think he was like 45 when we moved over there. So he'd been in Scotland 42 years of his life. Or 45, should I say. And it was hard for him. But he did the best he could, and he was working on the oyster boat and he was enjoying that, but it was still tough. Especially someone who grew up in sort of rough parts of Glasgow. It's a big culture shock.
Mm-hmm.
And he wouldn't change his accent for anybody either.
Wow.
But it was one of my best experiences.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So you were there when you were 16. You were still there when you left school?
I did almost 2 years in Louisiana. So I think I turned I just got to 18 and then we moved back, you know.
To
Yeah.
what?
Back to Scotland.
You
sorry.
went back to Scotland in 2 years?
I know, man.
Really?
Yeah. Not with my dad's partner, because she turned out to be completely insane. So
Really?
oh yeah, like Misery type stuff.
Misery?
Yeah. You ever seen that movie?
It's one of my favourite films. There's a justice higher than that of man. I will be judged by him. Annie Wilkes. I'm a huge fan.
She's
seen that
brilliant.
film so many times.
It's a great movie.
Amazing.
What's the guy's name in it? The sort of
James Caan.
That's it. Yeah.
It's his real name.
He also plays
Paul Sheldon.
Elf's dad in the movie.
He certainly does.
Yep.
He was in Godfather.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's lesser known movie.
and yeah, exactly. Las Vegas. He was in the series with Josh Duhamel.
Right.
I don't know if you know that. Really enjoyed that as well. Mickey Blue Eyes.
Mickey Blue Eyes.
Big fan of James Caan.
That's a great movie. So yeah, that was don't want to.
So she turned into.
Don't want to go too much
Annie
into
Wilkes.
it, but
Holy shit!
Somewhat.
Wow.
A version of that.
Wow.
Like,
did she do the whole hobbling with the wood and the sledgehammer?
She pretended to be in a wheelchair for 6 months.
Okay. Wow.
I don't want to go too much into
not
it,
at all.
but yeah, that was enough for my dad to sort of think we should probably go.
Yeah, that would do it.
So yeah, we moved back after.
So you were back here,
Yeah.
and you were. What happened then?
I stayed in a sort of chalet for 6 months during the snow. It was like.
Were you working at that time?
I think no. I'd applied for college.
Yeah.
I did applied for the music college in Perth. So I had like 6 months to do whatever I wanted. You know, I'd gotten in, and then I was just like sort of tossing around, still leaning on my youth at that point, and that I didn't have to do anything if I didn't want to. And then eventually I went to college. Great times. And then
Which college? What were you studying?
Music. Yeah.
Music at
Perth College. Yes.
With the view to do what?
I just was heavily into music, so anything that meant I could do something that I enjoyed. I didn't really have an end goal with it. That was just one of these things. I wasn't very forward thinking at that age. You know, it was like, all my friends are going to this college, I'm going to go as well.
Yeah.
But I kind of regret it a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, because I didn't really get much out of it. And the way that, you know, UHI, University of the Highlands and Islands, is something they brought in the year after I started the music degree, the music college. And basically, we were at one of the best music colleges in Scotland at that time. And then when they changed it to the UHI, it was a program that was taught all across Scotland. So we basically went back a couple of years. So it was just, I found it like extremely boring. But yeah, I wish I had the sort of sense in me at that time to go and study something. I don't know. College is not
philosophy.
No, I wanted to do either religious anthropology.
Yeah.
Or as I got older, I wanted to do like sort of cyborg anthropology. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. But I wouldn't have been able to conceive that when I was that age.
Yeah, totally.
But the religious anthropology, maybe because I was always interested in people who were religious, not because I'm religious myself, but I love to understand why people believe these things and how they came to these conclusions. And even in the face of all this information that is contradictory to it, they still choose to believe. And I don't mean to do it in a demeaning way. I just, because it's fascinating to me. It's like sort of chimps at the zoo. You're just like,
yeah,
look at that chimp throwing shit everywhere.
What's your religious stance?
Just to sort of preface this, when I was younger, the bog standard, like the pretext to all was Protestant. I was brought up, but I didn't go to church. The only interaction I had with church was at primary school, where we had to do the nativity, and I would go live with my gran, who was pretty religious, and she would take me to the church summer camp thing, school, which was cool, because at that time I was like the good-looking young athletic boy, and all these girls were all after me. It's the only reason I liked it. And I wore Kappa tracksuits.
Oh yeah,
because that's how cool I was. And yeah, so that was my only sort of interaction with religion. But I still, you know that feeling where you still sort of you believe there's a God, but you don't believe, and you don't know why you believe.
Mm-hmm.
It's just part of your identity, somewhat.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that, but I wasn't heavily into it.
Okay.
And then I started getting older and started questioning things a bit more as you do.
Mm-hmm.
And then I became one of these, you know, the early atheists, maybe like in 2008 or 9.
What prompted that?
I think it was the conclusion I came to after researching so much. I say research, I was probably just on YouTube videos for 8 hours
Listening
at a
to
time.
Richard Dawkins.
Well,
and Hitchens.
This is actually what changed my mind. So, identified as an atheist, but it wasn't like a militant atheist.
Mm-hmm.
I was just, I don't believe in anything. But the reason I changed to like agnostic eventually was I read Richard Dawkins' God Delusion. It's a great book. It took me 3 or 4 times to get through it, you know, because it's heavy, but it's such a good book. And maybe like a third of the way in, I was like, oh, maybe I don't really think of myself as atheist. Like, it's a very strong word.
Yeah.
It's a super strong word.
Yeah.
And scientifically, it's not really accurate. And that's why I sort of, not that identify as anything really, but agnostic was where I lied in. And it's more just, I can't prove anything. And reasonably, I think that there probably is nothing, like there is no God, but I still think there's like morals and stuff like that are sort of, that come from religion, but not necessarily God, you know. And I think these are things that we would come to naturally in a way, because we must have, but there's a lot of old information in these texts that are great, you know, and it's good to study and sort of see where these people were at this time and why they thought of that. Because religion kept people together, and in times where it was just completely horrendous to live back then, you know. If you ventured out of your village, you're going to die. So religion was what bound these people, and I think that's what it was used for. And eventually it got changed in all sorts of ways. What about you?
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm agnostic for pretty much the same reasons. But, you know, what's going through my head, and I think what's like super important, is that, you know, in order to say that there is or isn't a God, how do you actually define God?
Yeah, that's the big one.
So what does God mean to you?
Well, I think it's a hard one. I don't like that word God either, because say, I think I talked about this on the show with someone, I'm not sure if it was you actually, but the word God, say this turns out to be a simulation theory. Say one person designed all this world, would you call that person God? People wouldn't. That wouldn't be something. That's just, we've been handed this word down, God.
Yeah.
So therefore we just associate it with something that's larger than us.
Yes.
But we wouldn't, if we were to rename it, we wouldn't call it God. It would be, it's weird. Like he would just be a scientist that made this universe.
Well, yeah, it depends what methods he used in order to do it.
Do you think they would want to be called God?
Well, I don't know, but by our standards, because he is greater than us, that would make him our God. But if that's how you define it, then how can you say that there isn't a God? Because there has to be something greater than us. There was something that made us.
Yeah.
What do you call that?
But these are unknowables, you know. I know, me personally, I don't think there's a daddy God. I just believe that there's I like this. I don't know who said it, but I like the universe created us to experience itself. That's one of my favorite quotes from some random picture I saw maybe 10 years ago, and I think that's great. Like we're the phalanges of the universe to feel itself, you know, and that's just how I like to think of it.
That's super
And I think
cool.
spirituality
Yeah,
is important as well.
yeah.
You know, you can't discount that either. We spoke a little bit before it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people poo-poo when you say spirituality, but there's loads of definitions of it, and it's a personal thing as well. You know, as long as you don't encroach on anyone else with your spirituality, unless that person wants to hear from you.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, one of my favorite sort of podcasters, Sam Harris, he has gotten heavily into meditation.
Yeah.
Because he knows the direct effect, because he's a neuroscientist, he knows how it affects the brain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the leading scientists, you know, and avid atheist.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do those things compute? You know, someone who's an avid atheist, a neuroscientist, and is into meditation and spirituality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
And he's a vegan now, I think.
Mm. Yeah.
10 years ago, those things wouldn't have computed.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true.
How do they add up to someone who's very much on the level?
On the level.
Somewhat.
On the level. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
I think these are aspects that a lot of people are missing from their life. If you go way too much one way,
yeah,
you're going to be deficient and sort of have like hypertrophy and another aspect.
I like it.
You'll shrivel
Cool.
up.
Yeah.
But that it makes sense. Like in life, if you only use one arm for the rest of your life, this one's going to shrivel up. And it's the same with ideas and sort of flexing your philosophical muscles and different parts of it. You have to engage on these different things.
Yeah.
Or you're just going to be a one-dimensional person.
Yeah. That was a cool rabbit hole. Let's get back to the bio.
Oh yeah,
it's just a lot simpler. No, I love talking about just big stuff.
Me too.
Because I don't think that, I mean, podcasts certainly have probably encouraged people to be more perhaps reflective and actually think about things like that. But in the main, people are just going through their daily life thinking about how the hell do I get to the end of the month?
And how many times do you get to formulate your opinion when you're speaking? Like, and you get to sort of sharpen it against other people's ideas as well.
Yeah,
when do you ever get to do that?
I know.
On Facebook, talking shit when everyone agrees with you and your little clique is not doing that. It's about, like metal on metal.
Or just simply having like, text wars with people on Twitter or Reddit.
Man.
Yeah, you're right. Like having like sensible sort of dialogue and conversation definitely helps.
But if you came out and said that you were, say, religious in some sort of way, like I wouldn't be laughing inside. Like I'd be interested to try and draw out how you got into that and what you believe and why.
Yeah.
And I just want to, that's 2 points come together and sort of exchanging information and then just coming away with it feeling a bit better about yourself.
Yeah. It's because I don't know whether it's because the topics themselves are so emotionally charged or people have just created this thing around, so they're like, I mean, they're not even like hot potatoes or like canisters of fucking, Agent Orange or napalm or something. Seriously.
Yeah,
like religion and like sex and gender and all these things and race. Nowadays, I just pretty much try and steer clear of them.
Do you, obviously it's something that you don't talk about on Inspired that much because it's not really a platform for that, but is there anything you would stay away from on your show?
Nah. Not really. I mean, I've discussed religion with certain people. I don't probably just bring it up kind of flippantly for the sake of it. It's, if the guest is somebody who, that is applicable to, then I'll talk about it. But I won't just kind of get into conversation in 5 minutes. So
God,
let's talk about yeah.
Big G or lowercase g?
Yeah, precisely. Nah, I don't so much do that. But so I've got a guest coming on later in the year. It's certainly planned. He's a New York Times bestseller called Rob Bell. I don't know if you know of him. So he is religious. He's a Christian. He's a pastor, but he's also homosexual.
How does he? So how do those things?
Well, that's this whole thing.
That's cool.
How those things sort of
that'll be good.
Interrelate and oppose one another. It's very interesting. But he's an incredible speaker. and person, and that'll be amazing. So inevitably we will end up discussing religion because it's pertinent to the conversation, but otherwise it's the sort of thing that will either sort of come up or it won't. Often it will come up actually if we end up talking about death,
right,
or people's relationships with death, because we all have that. So then it will be like, so why are we here? What do you think created us? Like, what does God mean to you?
What do you? Is death something that you think about?
Recently I've been thinking about it a lot. Because the people that I've had on at this precise time are it's like what they deal in. So my most recent guest who I had on is Lisa Williams, who is a world-renowned psychic medium,
right?
Who's had her own shows on American television. It's been on like Oprah Winfrey, Keeping Up with the Kardashians, like Good Morning America, Ricky Lake, like all sorts of shows. So she's connecting and speaking with people who have passed,
right?
So that obviously, there was a lot of conversation about kind of death-related matters and that. And then my upcoming guest, again at this time, is Stephen Jenkinson, who worked in what he calls the death trade.
Right, okay.
Palliative care for many, many years, and now is an author and speaks a lot about death because he thinks that the language that we use around it is kind of it's not appropriate, and it's just like not fitting to what death is. So yeah, it's caused me, it's actually, I've had like a really immense sense of gratitude more recently because I've thought a lot more about my own mortality. And I think that like by thinking about it, not fixating on it, but being aware that that's something that will ultimately happen and you don't know when it's going to happen, then it really forces you to kind of take more stock of the present moment. And we say things like, oh, I'll see you next week, or I'll speak to you soon, and like that's not a given. We go through life often sort of on an unconscious level just expecting this will never come to an end, and then at some point it kind of does, and it's probably like, oh, whether or not you get hit by a bus or whether or not you find you've got terminal cancer. Yeah.
Shit.
So yeah, man, definitely think about it.
Yeah, I think when you become sort of meditative, if that's the word, you are more aware of your mortality as well, and it's something you definitely will think about.
Yeah. But I guess it's like, there's questions for me that still remain around what happens after we die, because is it like an egg that's like cracked open and then your consciousness becomes infinite?
Yeah.
Or is it just like everything that makes you just ceases to exist? There's too many people and there's too much to suggest that we exist on like this plane, and then when we die there's another plane, there's other stuff that happens, there's other. So I don't know, I don't know how you prove that.
It's funny, one of my most favourite things about some forms of Christianity is the fact that they think heaven's in the sky. It's like, which part of the sky? They always point up. It's like, I don't get that. Like, what happens when it gets to night? There is no more sky. Does that mean heaven disappears for the next 5-6 hours? But they always point up. They go into space, maybe? I don't know. But do you think they mean like another dimension? Now they're talking about multiverses.
Yeah, I know.
Can't get their story bloody straight. Don't just say up. Think about it. Oh, he's gone up.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so anyway, bio. Let's go back to the bio for a minute.
I want to talk about Tom Cruise.
We'll get to Tom. That's inevitable.
So yeah, the bio.
Just like, because I mean, I've watched quite a lot of your podcasts, but I don't really know like who you are at the core.
Yeah,
and I enjoy conversations that are like, what are the experiences that sort of made this person, and trying to gain, like, not just simply based on your views on religion, but like, what is this guy's perception of reality? What's his worldview? And a lot of that stems from the experiences that you had.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah. So you went to college. Did you stay at college?
I did 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I just I left because it was just, I don't know. Like I was saying, I was getting bored with this, having to go back essentially a year just because they unified it all. So I took a year out. Then I tried to come back and do sound engineering because I thought that would lead me into the sort of...
That's ideal for podcasting.
I know,
that's perfect.
But I had been out of college, the whole sort of school sphere for a year. Okay. You know, it was the first time I'd been properly out of education for a whole year, so my head wasn't really back into it. And I should have... It was a bit of a waste of a year, to be honest. You know, I just had my student loan and I was going to get drunk, and that's all it was. That's all I was doing. I didn't want to grow up at that particular point. But I think growing up the way I did, being able to move from place to place easily and sort of make friends along the way is sort of turned my personality into someone who likes traveling, you know, and I always want to travel, and I love visiting new places, and there's no better feeling than going around the world. Because I lived in Toronto for a year as well.
When was that?
2012.
Okay.
So when I was doing MMA.
Yeah, we're skipping ahead chapters. So hold on a second. There was sound engineering. What was your first job after leaving college stuff?
Well, I did work for 6 months in between my first year of college, and that was for a garden nursery.
Right, okay.
Yeah, it was great. It was owned by a family of Christians, actually. Brethren, is it the Brethren one?
So
they don't watch television, and one of the
Sisyphus. Is it Sisyphus?
Sisyphus. Are you talking about the guy pushing?
Of course I am. It is, isn't it?
I think so. Sounds
sure
like something you get after a night out. You gave me Sisyphus.
I don't know precisely. I don't want to look at my phone. But
okay. Yeah, it's rude.
Is that right?
I'll say yes.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll check it afterwards, or people will be
sure it is.
It's this guy.
Sure it is. Yes.
Okay.
I told you. Halfway through the conversation, that was on my mind the whole time.
Should be listening to my biog.
lingering.
Am I boring you that much? No, we can have
loosely engaged in the conversation. Now I'm going to be like, is that right or wrong? Have I just outed myself as an idiot or
real conversation?
He's definitely someone.
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure he was that guy.
Yeah, the father of syphilis. The syphilitic allfather. That's what they call him.
Okay, so anyway, sorry.
Yeah, so I worked 6 months for in a garden nursery doing landscaping, because they would do landscaping jobs on the side as well. Great. I worked 6 months. It was good money. It was the first time I made money as well.
Yeah.
Off working off my own back. I had a little Saturday job before that, washing dishes for £3 an hour when I was 14. That was my first proper job, and thinking back on it, I hated it. Absolutely hated it.
Doesn't sound great.
No, it was just worse.
£2 an hour to wash dishes?
No, I was really good at it, and the boss would never acknowledge it, and he had problems sleeping, so he slept on a sleep apnea machine. So he was constantly just in a bad, bad mood. No matter what I did, it was just like wrong. So I just hated that job. It was just something I never... Probably gave me this attitude towards authority eventually, I guess. But yeah, that stuck with me. That's one of the things that stuck with me. My anti-authoritarian personality.
So what was the job that you did once you left all the ecology stuff?
After I did that college,
did you have a clear career path?
Not
really. Is where I'm going with this.
Do you know what? I'm one of these people. I'll get to the job obviously, but I'm one of these people that's I've never had work goals.
Okay.
like I've never had a goal. It's always been a means to an end with something. So my dad had his own landscaping business, so I worked with him on and off over the years while I was traveling. So I would travel. I guess that was my goal then, but that's not the long-term goal. So I would just travel, come back, make some money, go travel again, and then that's just been like my life for the last like 10 years, just going off. And I was in Austria for 6 months as well, working the ski season up there. It was just amazing. And then I'd come back and then work with my dad landscaping. But it's a hard life.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard.
Physical.
Yeah, and I think it comes to this point where if you're working for family, then you either are going to take on the business or you're not. And it's not. I think it's not good to sort of perpetually just be in and out of the business life, because then that kind of, I don't know. It's not good for either, when it's your family that you're working with. It's not good for the relationship, you know. And I think that creates tension by coming in and out and then traveling, making money, and then with the idea that you're not going to take over the business, you know, that causes like aggravation. And then growing up, when I got a bit older, that was me and my dad didn't get on, you know, a lot of the time when we were working. It was just like pretty vicious, you know, some of the stuff. Yeah, like not fighting or anything like that, but just like shouting at each other in customers' gardens, you know. And like I think I ended up kicking a dent in his car. Like I was so angry, I just put a dent in the car. But it was just tension that had been building through coming in and out, you know. And I think I was staying at my dad's, the family home at that time, you know. So that it causes so much stress, unneeded stress, you know.
Yeah.
That could have just been corrected by doing my own thing and going out like on my own. And it's weird, like,
Jeez.
I was speaking to someone, a taxi driver actually, on Friday, and he was talking about I think it was his daughter or his son had moved out and they were buying a house, but they were like 20, 28 or something like that. And the times have changed so much from my dad's generation, and probably up until the sort of 80s and 90s, that was just the thing that everyone done. You could buy a house as soon as you came out of school, probably, you know, whatever. But now it's just not happening. You know, people are living with their parents till they're in their like early 30s now, you know, probably later than that. And it's just because they can't do it. They can't afford to go and buy a place. It's just terrible.
I know.
And that's only going to be more like exponential.
Yeah.
But that's not something that they've had to deal with, like parents have had to deal with ever, really. Because
it's true.
Either you had the war to deal with, or, you know, you were making enough money and it wasn't as high rent.
Yeah, totally. I know.
It's like an epidemic, I would say, yeah.
An epidemic?
No? Thoughts?
Thoughts on whether it's an epidemic? Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
Or maybe that's just a weird hangover from the Industrial Revolution. You know, I think before that, people would stay with their parents and their gran would stay with them all the way up until they all died or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's the old model. Maybe we're just coming back to that, but it's hard in a society that puts pressure on people to succeed.
Yeah.
That's where it's hard, I think. I think that's the difference.
I just think less and less people are, you know, sort of young people growing up, unless they're getting assisted by their parents to get property, they're just not buying property because they can't. So they rent. Yeah. And so, you know, it then creates, there's just constant imbalance. Yeah. But someone was saying to me recently that banks were actually giving 100% mortgages again. Apparently.
That can't be good.
And I was like, really? I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked.
I guess.
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, can we talk about
your bio? We need to wrap that up at some stage.
Okay, I went traveling for ages.
You travelled again?
Yeah.
Yeah?
So
when did you leave? Where did you go?
In 2012, I stayed in Toronto for a year.
Right.
And that was MMA related.
So when did you start MMA?
2000 and... Shit, this is going back. 11? Yeah.
And was that with a view to doing it as a career?
I think I'm one of these people that gets very focused on like one thing.
Yeah. Phase type person.
Yeah.
I'm like that.
But I got so focused on it that I didn't even have room for my thoughts of where I wanted my career to go. You know, it was purely in the moment.
Yeah.
You know, I was training every day, and I was focusing on getting better and better and better. But I never ever thought to the larger picture of where I wanted to be with it. You know, I was just so invested in what I was doing from day to day that.
How did you survive financially whilst you were doing that?
In
Toronto.
Oh, in Toronto, I ended up working for a gym. The story is that I knew someone who was working in Extreme Couture in Toronto. There's one in Toronto and there's one in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm. Didn't know they had one in Toronto.
Yeah, it's huge. It's one of the biggest gyms in North America.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is massive. Shout out to Extreme Couture Toronto. But essentially, she was working there and she was working on the sales desk, and she got me a way in there by supposedly I was supposed to be teaching initially, but when I got there it kind of changed, and the owner of the gym, he took me under his wing, and he gave me sort of a room and all this, and
wow.
I became like part of his entourage. It was so strange. It was such an amazing time though. Like I landed on my feet so well over there. But he basically put me in his MMA clothing store.
Right, okay.
And I was like the manager of that and selling all the stuff, and I'd go,
I've not touched that, so
perfect. Thank you. I'm recovering from a cough anyway. But I would go to shows, and then we'd have a stall, and then we'd sell all our stuff. It was terrible stuff. There was only the boxing gloves or the Thai cow leather ones. That was the only decent thing that they were selling. But people would just lap it up, and it was at a time where people were really starting to get into MMA and going to training and buying the gear. So yeah, he put me in charge of that, and I just had a great time. It was one of the best experiences that I've ever had, and I don't think if I'd went there maybe a month or two earlier or later, that wouldn't have never have happened. I mean, I got to be the caretaker for the gym for the night because they were filming a movie in the gym, so they were using the cage, and I got to watch all the sort of setup and the sort of action, and then they had this lady who would take down the time so that for continuity and all this, so she would then be able to show when things happened, when they stopped, and who was wearing what and what time, and it was great. And because I was there and I was there to train, they would ask me, does this move look right in the cage? And I went in and I'd have to show them like a little bit about it and all that. And it was just, I was like, this is stuff you hear about in movies over in Scotland. There's no scene like that over here. It's just completely different. Yeah. But the guy that was in the movie, I think it was Only it was called, it never got released. But the main guy in it was, what was his name? Do you remember Roswell, the TV show? There was the two brothers, and then there was the lady, the blonde lady, and they were all brother and sisters, but they were aliens.
Right, okay.
It wasn't a great TV show. You'll notice him when you see him, but he was quite like a prominent actor, and he was in this movie. It turns out he's Canadian, and he was asking me like how to cut weight.
Really?
All these questions, and I was like, don't know what to say, man. You've only got a week to film. You're not going to cut any weight.
Exactly.
And then it just it was a weird point where I was like, do I go home or do I stay here? Because if I'd stayed, I wouldn't have left ever. But I just wanted to do a bit more traveling in Europe at that point. There's still places I wanted to see.
Yeah.
And I knew if I hadn't went home at that time, I wouldn't have got to do those things.
Yeah.
So fortunately I came back and I got all the Europe out of my system. And then I just met my girlfriend. She's from Canada.
Yeah.
So that makes it easier. Some say it would be planned that I met a Canadian girl so I could go back to Canada, but so these things happen.
Jeez. So work-wise, what are you doing these days?
Still landscaping. And on Saturdays, I work for a brewery, slinging beers.
Is that right?
Yeah, have you the Pit?
Yeah,
Pitt
yeah,
Street,
yeah,
the Pitt
yeah,
Street
yeah.
Market. Yeah, well, Barney's beer. Big up to Barney's. I work on the bar there, and I'm slinging pints. It's good. Have you been to the Pit before?
No.
Man, you should come down.
Yeah.
It's so good. There's the street food awards this weekend, so it's all the sort of street cars that sell like great foods.
Nice.
And some of them have been runner-ups, and some of them have won the year before. So it's amazing food.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that movie Chef, or is it Chef?
Ooh.
Jon Favreau, and he's like a Michelin star chef, and then his restaurant goes under, and then he becomes like a truck chef. He goes around.
Really?
It's really good. Man.
I've not seen that. I like him actually.
And it's got Scarlett Johansson in it as well.
Yeah.
And she's got fake tattoos, and she smokes weed because she's so cool. It's probably not real weed.
Probably.
Oregano. So that's the life of Kaypee. It's to me, Kaypee.
It's to me, Kaypee.
Someone's going to paint a picture of me dressed up as Mario or Luigi.
Wow. So you've seen a lot of life.
Yeah, man. I still want to do Asia. Like Asia's the big one for me that I want to get done, and I think the plan is to move to Canada eventually. Just because of the political climate here, I feel that's the right move for me.
What's the political climate here?
Just the sort of, yourself, like the whole thing that's going on with Brexit, and then there's the uncertainty and the Tories just trying to vote in another idiot, and then there's no general election either. This is just something that's, and I don't think there's going to be another. I don't think Scotland will become independent.
You don't?
No.
Interesting.
I want it to happen.
Interesting.
I just think that's one thing that Westminster or England and maybe the UK as a whole is just not going to let go.
They'll just kibosh it.
They're not going to. Maybe they'll do an indie ref, like a vote, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Really?
Yeah.
See, that's interesting.
You probably know some people that think otherwise.
Well, I don't want this to be any spoiler, but potentially one of your upcoming guests would be pretty upset by that revelation. That'd be an interesting talking point.
Yeah.
When's he coming on?
It was supposed to be last week.
Okay.
But his mum's in hospital.
Oh, jeez.
She's been in for the last week or so.
Right.
But he was like, keep in touch, we'll rearrange it. I want to do this. So
okay.
But it's just one of these things. I was super excited to do it, but do you ever find when you're excited and you tell people about a guest, it never happens?
Yes.
It happens so many times.
Yes.
I don't tell anyone now.
Neither do I.
I mean, I think that's why.
Neither do I. I never do it. Well, yeah, exactly.
I told you about the one, and then I told Paul as well.
Yeah.
You were on the Paul's podcast recently, weren't you? The Rebel City, and
he's actually he was second last guest.
Yeah.
On this.
Has he been on here?
Yeah.
Oh, no way. I thought it was
just
after
at the weekend.
Cool. How'd it go?
It was awesome.
Did they both come on?
It was great. No, Matt was unwell, so he didn't make it through, but Paul came through. We had a great chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good.
I like Paul. He's a really good guy.
He's awesome.
And he's awesome. Super tall as well.
He is.
And
his bio was fascinating. I was like, what?
Yeah, man.
Nothing like how I thought he would be, even after meeting him. I was like, my God, I would never have thought a lot of this.
It's the same with, like, you asked me what I do after we did the last show together, and I was like, landscaping and whatever, and you're just like, You were kind of surprised by it.
Yeah. Just, I don't know, like, I don't know what I thought you did, but I just, it came quite as a surprise. So I was like, really interesting.
Yeah.
I like hearing people's stories or, there's sort of paths in life and how certain things take them onto other things.
I think it's something that being the prominent lifestyle in Scotland is something that people can't really escape, you know, like, no matter if you're doing any sort of creative stuff, that's going to be a lot of people's backgrounds, you know, that working classness is something that's just the backbone of Britain, you know, so you're always going to come into contact with that type of person.
Yeah, perhaps.
Mainly not in your high tower in Edinburgh, but your ivory tower.
Ivory tower, yeah.
You should see this place in here. It goes back like at least 50 yards in this room, at least. I'm surprised I can hear myself with all the echo in here.
People are always surprised when they come in here, like, oh gosh, I thought it was a lot bigger.
I like this. It makes me feel safe. I would always podcast in here.
Yeah.
The other room, I'd be so frightened to do it.
Really? Yeah, it's very, very different.
Yeah.
Very different.
But they're different
But it lends
vibes.
itself well to that vibe, whereas this is much more suitable.
Can I just change the topic slightly?
Certainly. No issues.
Do you know, I read this article today and it was essentially saying that by the year 2050 there are going to be no Garys left in the UK.
Interesting.
Did you read this?
No, but I knew that.
Crazy.
I didn't know it was 2050.
You just thought of it yourself, did you?
No, I've heard other people say that eventually there will be no garage. Yeah, but a more damning article was one that Jason Auld recently shared. It was a Vice article. I think it was him that shared it, to say that we were potentially, like, the end of humanity was going to be in 2050.
I like the end of Gary's better. I don't care about it. I'm joking.
Yeah.
No, but that is something that's. I mean,
That's
it was always something that you're a little bit older than me, but when we were growing up, that was one of the big conversations when it comes to, like, David Attenborough. Every time he was speaking on any show, he would talk about the impacts. But it's becoming more immediate now, but it still feels like people are just grasping onto ignorance, even though it's in their face more and more.
Yeah.
It just feels like people are, like, grasping on a bit more. And I think America, more so, is sort of a religious-based resistance to it. But the UK, there shouldn't be any sort of excuse. I don't know why there's still just a bit of resistance to changing the use of plastic, you know, these single-use plastics and all these things. And just, like, the recycling in the UK is appalling. When I was in Austria, there was like 7 bins. You're like, oh, you can't put...
Really?
Yeah, you put like a spud peel in one bin. You're like getting choked out from the bloody Wolfgang. I'm not lying. The caretaker guy was called Wolfgang.
Is that right?
The scariest motherfucker I've ever met in my life. Yeah. Just would not take any shit. Every night just telling you how to clean the dishwasher, even though you've used it like for the whole season.
Yeah. Oh man.
But yeah, they take it. I mean, you pretty much get fined if you're not doing anything right. So that's why restaurants are super aware of it.
Yeah.
That you have to do recycling in-house. And then you take it to the recycling plant, and then you have to put it in individual bits again. So it's all well organized, and that's something they've been doing for years. But it's nothing. Like, I'm not even sure in Scotland people, even when you do your recycling, I think they do the plastic and cardboard. I'm not convinced that they're not all just throwing it in the one heap.
Probably.
Yeah,
it wouldn't surprise me.
I've heard stories.
Yeah.
I think there was even complaints to Nicola Sturgeon about some councils doing that as well. So I would not be surprised on the whole if Scotland was not.
Yeah.
I mean, if you live in a rural part of Scotland, what's the nearest recycling plant? All these places are not going to have that in place to be able to do it.
I know. It's not good.
Remember, folks, recycle.
Yeah. Tell me about your MMA career then.
There's not a lot to talk about. Nah, I started off doing karate when I was younger. Shotokan karate, which everyone does.
Yeah.
I was the youngest black belt at that time in the UK. I think I was
right.
13, 14.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And when the guy had come to the town that I was living in, the karate guy, Sensei, as a lot of people call him, but I call him Karate Guy. He only had one class at the time, and then eventually evolved into the kids class and the adult class. But because I'd been doing it for so long at that point, I just continued with the adult class. And then when I did my grading for my black belt, I did all the hardest stuff. The katas. You know what a kata is? It's like a sequence of moves.
Okay.
And you do it, and then you shout "Hey!" at the end. I did the 5 hardest ones for my black belt. I was graded by Stan Hope, who was the chairman or the commissioner of the board. So they brought up the bigwig to do all of our gradings at the time. But at the end of it, I still only got my child black belt. So I'd have to wait another, was it 3 years to get my adult black belt? And I was like, I'm not waiting, screw this. So I left. And there was a time in between that I realised just how it doesn't work on the street. It was so ineffective. It was unbelievable.
Seriously?
Yeah, I was just athletic and I could run. That was it. I had the lungs
did you get
to
into
run.
like street fights and?
It's something I shied away from.
Right.
A lot. There was a bit of sort of, you could call it bullying when I was maybe 8, but it was basically just coming from different places and moving to sort of one really bad place, and it got really bad. But it wasn't like all focused on me. It was just like rough parts that if you went through, it would just happen.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually that all sort of disappeared. But even though I trained for years, it was something I always just sort of, I stayed away from.
Yeah.
Even though in my mind, I was always like, I'm this cry guy. You know, I could kick anyone's ass.
Yeah.
But when it came up, it was just sort of a daunting thing. And that sort of affected me all the way until I was maybe 19.
Right, okay.
There was times where I should have defended myself, and I just felt so ashamed of myself for not sticking up for myself. You know, I never got beat up or anything, but there's times where there was that line where they cross, and you can't let someone cross that line, and I should have, defended myself. I'm not advocating violence, but there's times where, it could have got dangerous if I hadn't done anything for myself.
Yeah.
And I felt a lot of shame in my sort of late teenage years with that. Sorry. And I think that comes from that era of being male. You have to be seen as being male, especially in late teens.
Yeah.
Coming from small towns, you have to there's a pecking order, and that's, you're going to put yourself on the bottom rung if that's how you act.
Yeah.
But luckily I could stay away from it with all the traveling that I ended up doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a little bit of boxing for like 2 sessions, but boxing's so old school, man. They wouldn't even speak to me. Like we'd do circuits, we'd do a bit of sparring. They wouldn't teach you any technique because you were new. They would only bring on the guys that they'd been there for a while.
Really?
So there was no interaction, and I'm like, I don't feel this. So I left. My friend Rory, or Chancellor Puddinhead, who's been on the podcast, he had been doing MMA in, I think it was Aberdeen. So he was travelling all the way from Perth to Aberdeen, which is like 60, 70 miles.
What's his name?
Rory... Oh no, I've forgotten his last name. Rory Maidens.
Okay.
He was the first person I'd met that was doing MMA. And I remember watching the early UFC when I first had Sky, when I was like 8 or 9, but it wasn't something that was real to me because I couldn't relate to it.
Yeah.
There was nothing that I'd done in my life that was even close to that. It was just something that looked like a barbaric cockfight.
Yeah.
So eventually I was like, I need to do something especially after America, just to keep myself fit.
Mm-hmm.
Because I get very antsy if I'm not doing physical things. If I'm not wearing myself out at least like 2 or 3 times a week, I get like sort of aggravated and very easily. I'm not like acting out, but I'm on a shorter fuse.
Like irritable.
Yes, very. Yeah. So I was like,
Mhm.
I'm going to try and do this, and then the first time I tried to do it was a class in Dundee through the uni, actually, Abertay Uni. There was one of the guys there that was training, head coach Billy Beckers. I emailed him, couldn't get in because the class was full. So I think it was another 6 months. One of my friends took me along to this class, and I didn't know it was the same one. I just thought there was loads of MMA classes in Abertay Uni, you know. So yeah, I went there, trained, loved it, and then I just kept getting more obsessed with it. It just took over my life. First fight I had was in City nightclub in Edinburgh. Do you remember the old City? That
Were you
was in
just
there?
out drinking and someone came up to you and pushed you, or?
No, it was actually in the venue, like in the cage, and it was called Capital Punishment.
Was it?
Yep.
Okay.
But when I posted the picture, the poster actually for the fight, people thought my nickname was Capital Punishment. The way it was worded, and I was like, "This is not my fighting name." That was like the lamest fighting name ever.
Punishment.
Capital Punishment.
Oh, Jesus.
So,
That's so good.
Yeah. You know, one of those awkward things that people think about you for years that you never address because they never tell you.
Yeah.
You know, one of those things that you find out and you're like, if you just said to me, I would have corrected you and told you no, but it was all weird. It's like,
That's so good.
I thought your nickname was Capital Punishment.
I figured it was a sanctioned event.
Yeah.
Like,
Barely.
yeah.
Yeah, there was it was weird in those early days in Scotland of MMA. You know, it was just, you can imagine what it was like warming up,
imagine what it was like.
warming up next to bloody like still saws, you know, and like drills and all this. People like building on this part of an old venue. You know, it's just, you can see some screws on the floor and there's no mats. It's all just sawdust everywhere. But yeah, my first fight, I won that one with Ezekiel choke.
Oh, nice.
So that's on top. And but it was such a blur to me. Like I think I was still carrying some of that guilt from my teenage years in that fight where, I don't know, I just kind of I zoned out so much during it. It was like a sort of outer body experience when I was in there.
Really?
No, totally. And I remember my coach telling me afterwards, he was like, you were like Fedor Emelianenko, like you were just, afterwards, you weren't even there. You were just like this stone cold killer. Yeah, it was a weird experience, but I still felt, because it was, I think it was C-class rules, so no punching to the head at that time.
Oh, right,
It was
okay.
my first fight, so it was no punching to the head,
No elbows.
no elbows, limited on your submission. So it was basically a grappling match with kicks and punches to the body. But it was like the first 54 seconds. But I was like, I remember just feeling, yeah. Even after then, I felt bad that, I don't know. It's a weird one to explain, but it's that sort of guilt thing I was talking about, like having to like show yourself, and that really played on my mind leading up to that fight, you know. And then afterwards it felt there was like a real release of tension in some aspect of my life, and I didn't know I was carrying that around with me. And I think that was the main sort of opening of that pressure was that first fight for me, which was good,
Yeah.
because it meant that the guilt and the sort of nervousness about fighting and sort of people being violent just totally disappeared for me. You know, you still get nervous when you fight, but that sort of debilitating side of it left for me, which was good, you know, because it can affect you more than one way in life. You know, it could be just as simple as someone speaking to you wrong in a bar. You know, it doesn't mean you're going to beat them up, but it also means that you're going to have the confidence to stick up for yourself verbally as well.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
And it's important. No,
yeah.
And it's important for, I think, for a lot of males to go through things like that, to have, it's not going to be a bunch of people mouthing off to each other. It's just going to be people being assertive about what they can do physically.
Yeah.
And that means they're not going to, because a lot of people, when they're scared, they're going to fight. You know, they're going to, that's what some people do when they're, if they come from a rough place or whatever.
Yeah.
If you're scared, you're just going to lash out, even though if you don't know how to fight.
Yeah.
But, so that released a lot of that sort of anxiety for me.
Do you enjoy fighting?
I absolutely love the training.
Mm-hmm.
I love training. I've always loved getting better, because it's like, it's legit karate. There was always this weird, like, this is pretty much not going to ever hurt anybody, like the punches like this. It's like, oh my God, this is unnatural movement. But when you feel like you're doing something that is actually effective, and you can see the different grades that you're maybe not kickboxing and all that, but especially BJJ, you're actually getting graded, so you know that you're reaching a certain level, and that means something. That changes your mindset. If you get to like a blue belt, that means that you're not going to get tapped out by white belts anymore. It'll happen, obviously it's going to happen, but there's like a sort of a weird confidence you get about yourself, and it's like a respect for your belt as well in the sport. Like, that you have to carry yourself a bit better, and better yourself. But yeah, I love the training aspect of it. And then when I focus on the fight, I do love it, but that's not my favorite part of it.
Okay.
It's definitely,
do you prefer the training?
Yeah, I love the training, and I've always done this weird thing where I would go away and I would travel, so I'd miss a bit, like maybe 6 months to maybe a year in training sometimes. So I'd always find myself. Sorry, my throat keeps going.
This is going to be fun to edit.
Sorry. Do you have another water there, actually?
Mate, I'm not sure that I actually do.
Sorry, let's have some of this.
I was going to take a bathroom break, actually. I can grab you a bottle when I go.
Right, okay.
We do that?
Yeah. What time are we on, actually?
Hour and 35.
That's pretty good.
That's the difficulty that I have with Inspired Edinburgh. Is that it's basically all about the guest, so I never talk about me. And that was one of the reasons for this, because it gives me the opportunity, if I want to talk about myself a bit more.
Oh, yeah.
Which sometimes I don't, but, if I do end up talking more, then I feel I can get away with it because it's my own show.
How often do you do this one?
Are we formally back on the...
Yeah, go for it.
We're back in the game.
Yeah, we're back in.
So, we've been to the bathroom.
I've been to the Emerald Sea, which is your bathroom. It's the greenest bathroom I've ever
isn't
seen.
It? Very green. It's vitrolite, it's called.
Oh, really?
The tiles on the wall, yeah.
That's cool.
Properly green.
Proper green.
What did you ask me?
I saw your little YouTube subscriber thing.
Oh,
there.
it's not real.
Oh, right, okay.
It's
Where do you get them printed off?
It's a replica.
Oh, really?
Yeah, got it
That's
from
funny.
Etsy.
Right, okay. Oh, yeah. I love that, man.
I just saw it and I thought it was cool. It's quite a nice bit of wall decoration. And there's one of my mentors. It was a quote that I shared with you, actually. One of my favourite quotes. The ultimate key to freedom is knowing we already are that which we seek. Mm-hmm. So it was like, if you're ultimately doing your podcast or whatever it is, like, to get some sort of trophy or some sort of wall decoration, like, then just buy it. And buy basically the same thing anyway. It has the same effect. What it really means is it's not. That's not the achievement.
Yeah, pimping ain't easy. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. So yeah. One
of my favorite quotes was from Jason Ald on my show.
Yeah.
It was a Lil Wayne one. It's like, G's are silent like lasagna.
Oh, yeah.
Like, as in gangsters. Like, gangsters are silent like lasagna, which is hilarious. I think that's the best.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it?
I say lasagne, though, just out of... It started off ironically, and now it's part of my vocabulary, yeah.
Your Italian heritage would be disgusted by that.
Have you ever thought about doing like a 23andMe? Like the sort of, the ones that take your DNA and tell you your background.
Oh, right, okay. Nah. I don't know if... I'm not sure whether that's something that interests me or not.
It's quite good.
My concern would be that it would show up something that I didn't want to know, and I'd be like, I wish I never knew that.
Well, you can choose to not take the health part of it.
It would be any aspect of it, man.
You don't want to know.
You're descended from like thieves and pimps.
No, you're really from Fife. That's what it'll tell you. This bloody house is all show. You're actually from
So
Kirkcaldy.
the surname Reeves is English. So my dad's side of the family, or they're mostly based around about Manchester.
Right. Okay.
But apparently the Reeves it's quite a middle class name. It was like the clerk or the clerk of the kings and the royalty.
Okay.
So they were like the sort of second level of hierarchy.
Right.
Apparently.
You're not being very relatable.
Man, all that stuff. I can see through it all.
Yeah.
I can see through it all very much for kind of what it is.
Only the aspect of it that worries me is the giving your information up to a company that's not regulated, and especially when there comes to security, there's a lot of places that have had problems and everyone's on the database, and that can be used against you and might be in the future, if they come out with anything that's sort of biological.
Exactly.
It's quite scary, but at the same time, I want to know.
Yeah. So what would you like to know?
I don't assume anything, but I'm probably like 98% Neanderthal, maybe 95, give or take.
Okay.
Probably.
What makes you say that?
I'm like 5'9". I have a very thick brow line, thick knuckles. And I'm attracted to Homo sapiens.
Right, okay.
Do you know that story about how the Neanderthals were bred out? That's one of the theories.
No, I don't think so.
It's probably both things, but the theory goes that the reason that Neanderthals sort of disappeared 40,000 years ago is either competing against sort of the Homo sapiens that were built for long distance running, and sort of their arms and the throwing arm was a bit more flexible, and there's something with their biology and diseases as well, was they were just a bit more resilient to it, Homo sapiens. And the other one is that they were sleeping together. They basically banged them out. That's why people have Neanderthal DNA in their DNA. Because they were having sex with Neanderthals.
I'm slightly confused actually. So what is their species? What is their dominant species? You have to be part of the same species, or you can't mate and procreate.
Neanderthals like a subspecies of Homo erectus, but we split off like something like, I think it was like 5,000 years ago. Not 5,000, sorry. Like 230. But we still cohabited, and they were able to they would have been for sure be able to procreate. Which is weird though.
It's weird.
Like imagine just, which one was it? Like was it a guy, Homo sapien, that was like, I like the look of that hairy, that old deer over there that's a Neanderthal? Or was it some Neanderthal dude that was like...
Probably.
Yeah.
Almost certainly.
He's probably a white cisgendered Neanderthal. Bloody politics.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Yeah.
So did you watch the fights at the weekend?
I certainly did, yeah. So I was doing stuff on... It was actually... Paul Shields was coming on this the next day, so I didn't stay up for all of it because I would have just been in pieces.
Yeah.
But I stayed up quite late, actually. I was up till about 4 or 5.
Wow.
Well, my wife had been to the Spice Girls concert and then went to the Spice Girls after party at Liquid Rooms, so she got back probably 2:30, 3.
Question.
And then just sat up for a bit.
Were the Spice Girls at the after party?
No. There was a Spice Girls tribute act.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
It's like 6 hours of Spice Girls.
Yeah.
Did she spice up her life? Or was she just a wannabe? Did she still
Oh
want
my
to?
God.
Did she still?
Trying to think of some sort of pun comeback.
Did she still want to be your lover after all of it? Or was she?
Oh man.
Did she just want to get with your friends?
You've thought of it this a lot, eh?
I just know the Spice Girls in and out.
Yeah.
I had that album for
She enjoyed it.
for maybe a lot longer than I should have had that album,
Okay.
but I had that album for a year.
Yeah.
It took for my best friend at the age of 15 to take a pair of pliers to that album and smash it up and throw it out the window.
Seriously?
Yep.
Oh God, that's extreme.
And Hanson.
Yeah.
I was into Hanson.
Really?
Yeah, man.
Oof.
Anyway, we're sort of digressing.
We seem to do a lot of that.
So UFC, Ufka.
Yeah, UFC. So I watched the fights. I actually watched them a day later or something. Amazing. Really good.
I had a bit of money on it this time. Generally, I don't bet.
I saw your bets. I thought JoJo would.
I thought she would take it.
Nah, I didn't.
I thought
Sorry, JoJo. I
she's.
didn't have faith in her.
Yeah. I
did
think
not.
she's on a sort of losing streak, is she not?
She is.
Is this her third one, or maybe her?
I'm not sure. I couldn't honestly tell you. You know, it's probably terrible. I don't really kind of track Scottish fighters that much.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
if they're on the fight card, then that's cool. But I'm not kind of like, how the Scottish guy's doing.
You don't feel any allegiance to them just because they're Scottish.
Should I?
No. It's purely down to preference.
Yeah. No, just yeah.
I think because I've sort of my MMA when I was starting my career, if you could call it that, she was sort of just beginning hers as well.
Right,
She was training in Muay Thai, and I think she was won a few championships in Muay Thai. So she was making that exchange.
Pre-Dinky Ninjas. Yeah.
She was making that transition into MMA. So it was interesting because a lot of people were going to be like, a female MMA fighter, which was there was barely any MMA fighters.
Yeah.
At that, let alone male in Scotland at that time.
Yeah,
Let alone bloody a female, but she had this elite level striking, and she was just destroying everybody in Scotland. And I think maybe she's suffering from coming from a place that doesn't specialize in certain martial arts, and that's maybe affected her sort of later on in life, just because we don't grow up with any grappling.
Precisely.
Mostly wrestling for people in America that always helps in fights, but she's just purely a Muay Thai fighter.
You've never had her on your show, have you?
I've spoken to her a couple of times in person. This was before I started my podcast, so I don't know when I interacted with her, if she remembered it was me. But yeah.
That'd be an interesting interview.
Yeah, I wanted to get her on before she made her JoJo 2.0 transition, because she was talking a lot about this, how she developed and how she's been living in America, and she sees herself as this new, better version of who she was as a fighter. So I wanted to get her on and talk about the transition before the fight. So, it'd be good to sort of her detail how she feels that where she was at compared to where she feels she is now.
Yeah.
But I think she lost that fight maybe, so it was a tough one. But I don't even know if she got back to me on it. So, but it's tough, when people are living in America and they start getting I think she has 90,000 followers. She's very popular. She's this little squeaky Glaswegian voiced girl, and she's an absolute killer.
Yeah, she is. She's
Dr. Neville is her bloody name. She's evil with her knees.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would have been good to get her on still, JoJo. Oh.
That'd be good. Definitely.
Yeah. But yeah, I had bet on Donald Cerrone to win, but that was purely my heart talking. It was nothing to do with my mind.
See, Tony Ferguson's just an odd one. I think that someone wrote there was a thread about this on the MMA Underground, and the guy kind of got flamed for saying it, but he's got quite an ugly fight style. You know, like his striking, if you look at it like through a technical lens, it's kind of all over the place, but he's so effective. Yeah. He's so effective, and he just seems to like damage guys a lot. There was another thread that had just pictures of his last 7
scary,
you know,
opponents.
Opponents, and they were just like, they're all busted badly.
Every single one of them was wide open and covered in blood. The Anthony Pettis fight was awesome though, because coming back from his knee injury, and then 6 months later, that's nothing. That's when you should be just starting to do rehab. You know, 6 months after a knee surgery like that, not come back and fight in the top UFC organization against Anthony Pettis, who was a former champion.
I know,
that's insane.
Yeah, it is.
And he was jumping about the ring like he was 20.
Right, I need to ask you, how do you see a fight between Tony Ferguson and Khabib going down?
I think people who watch MMA and the UFC specifically generally were along the vibe of it would just be one-sided towards Khabib, even though Tony's an absolute beast. Just maybe like a year to just the way he'd been screwed around in his career at that time, and then now with his sort of mental, people question his mental health. I think people were maybe just a bit unsure whether he was able to do it, but seeing him, what he's done to everyone now, you know, it's just, there's no question that he stands the best chance, I think, against Khabib.
Yeah.
Now, does he beat him? It's hard to say, but he's got all the tools, the conditioning as well. Like he can go on and on and on, and Khabib doesn't finish people. You know, he only wrestles you, keeps position, peppers you with punches, but that's it for the 5 rounds, and mentally destroys you, mentally fucks your brain with wrestling. But that's his style. That's only his style, and I think Tony's got the other style that could be the answer to it. You know, he's great off his back, amazing conditioning, gets better as the rounds go on, and it's super unorthodox against someone who is orthodox. That is a great sort of question though, and I can't wait. But hopefully it comes to fruition.
Exactly,
because this is going to be the 5th time that they try and make this fight happen. There's 4 times they've already pulled out of it. What do you think?
I don't know, man. It's just so hard to, I struggle to see Khabib being defeated. I have a real hard time seeing that. I don't know, Tony's probably got more ways to win, but I would imagine that it's going to go to a decision.
Do you think so?
Yeah, well, regardless of who wins, I expect it's probably going to be by decision. And if that is the case, then Tony's got his hands full, because you need to, do a lot to dethrone a champ in a decision.
Yeah. But if any of his past opponents look anything like that, if Khabib looks like any of his past opponents after the end of that fight, it's a pretty convincing...
It is, but a lot of judges just don't score based on damage. That's the old pride style of scoring, that damage was one of the factors. As it should well be. But I can see the flip side of that, because maybe somebody bruises or takes damage more easily than someone else. I don't know, man. It's a fascinating stylistic matchup, though. I'm desperate for it to happen. And
you got to think about the psychological aspect of it as well with Khabib. You know, he's been so dominant for so long, but he's taken so much punishment in his body. You know, training. The main enemy of Khabib in his career has always been his body and training. You know,
Javier Mendes.
Sorry. And will his body be able to keep together for another 2 training camps? And tiramisu, obviously, but we don't want to talk about that.
It was really interesting. What do you think about... I'm not sure who to ask you about first. Henry Cejudo, I guess. I was going to ask you about Valentina, but we'll go for Henry first.
He's he's in a tough position, you know. He's the flyweight and bantamweight champion now. What's the guy's name? Mares, the guy that he just beat.
Yeah.
He was seen as someone who had the tools to beat Cejudo. You know, he's bigger, stronger, and more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he was a champ before that as well, before the UFC.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what organization it was.
Was it one? No, World.
No, it was like it wasn't IFL, but what was it called?
Bellator. No,
World Series of Fighting.
Yeah, that's it.
It was Ray Seffel's organization.
Yeah, but you just can't beat that Olympic level mentality that generally trumps all. I think that's what sort of saved Ronda Rousey for a lot of her career, was just that sort of, she was that level above with her mentality because of being in the Olympics.
Yeah.
You know, and she'd won a medal.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just different. There's no one that can get anywhere near that in their minds, because it just takes that extra bit of dedication.
Yeah.
And people living that life that other people can't do because they're not, you know, they're not good enough, and that's why she was so successful. So Cejudo, he's got that in him, and that's part of him. You're not going to get that out of him. But
do you reckon he could go up in weight and win the featherweight belt?
I don't know if I want to see that, to be honest. You know, I personally am not a fan of Cejudo. Just his personality is just kind of a bit grinding against me.
Totally.
But
I find that.
Yeah, I mean, would it be sort of good to see?
When you look at the people that he called out, Uriah Faber hasn't fought in like 2.5 years. Dominic Cruz is always injured and hasn't fought in God knows how long. And Cody Garbrandt just is like, you know, he's on continuous knockout loss streak because he just goes into gunfights, you know, and doesn't have the chin for it.
Yeah, there's no one really for him. I think he's gonna struggle for an opponent that's on his level.
Yeah,
I don't know.
There's Peter Yan, the guy that was fighting against Jimmy Rivera.
Yeah,
he could be an interesting matchup with him. But yeah, I mean, but at 145 there could be a few interesting fights.
But he's only fought like a couple of people, and the division seems to be pretty much cleared out. It's kind of a tough spot for him. I know. You know, it's not like John Jones, where he's had like killer after killer after killer, and he just completely wiped them all out.
Yeah,
it's not the same story. And he's calling himself champ, which is
Olympic
terrible.
Champ.
Yeah,
I know.
It's not my type of thing.
Valentina, are you a fan?
Kind of. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, big fan.
Did you see the what's her Jessica Ai, like when she got knocked out as well? I knew that was going to happen.
I didn't think that's how it was going to end with a head kick, but I thought she was going to get absolutely demolished. And Jessica is a good fighter, and I like her, but yeah, it was like she had no place being in that octagon with.
Well, just see them
Valentina.
face like Shevchenko and her facing off, and she's got all her branding. Jessica Ai, it was just like you're focusing too much on that aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Not that she isn't training, you know, everyone trains for the fight, but that is a distraction, and I think that you could see it when they faced off. Like Shevchenko was just pure focus, whereas Jessica Ai was there, sort of kind of, I don't know, just wasn't fully in it. For me. And plus Shevchenko's a beast.
Yep.
She'll take anybody head off with that kick.
Totally.
So were you disappointed that Cerrone didn't go on to be a title contender?
Yeah, I would say for sure. Yeah. I mean, it could still well do.
Everyone loves Dad Cerrone. You know,
so
this
good.
is the version that
Dad boy.
Dad boy. But he's the best. I've grown to like him. I didn't really I wasn't on board 100% maybe a couple of years ago, but now I've just grown to sort of love him. He's great.
Yeah, he is. Huge fan.
Yeah.
Can't not like the guy.
I know. He's just, he's as legit as it comes.
Yeah.
It's so funny that he is willing to fight anytime, but at the same time struggles a lot with his sort of his anxiety, I guess, when he comes to fighting.
Yeah.
You know, there's times where he just can't even get warmed up properly, and he comes out and still wins, but still he's got that internal struggle. And it's funny that he's such a badass, but on the same, you know, on the flip side, he's really dreading it.
I know.
It's funny how those things affect even just people you assume are complete and utter badasses. It's all relative.
Exactly. Who's your favourite fighter?
Currently or all time?
So is your favourite fighter not still fighting?
Of all time?
Is it Fedor?
No. He's great though. Man, I grew up watching all that guy's fights. For me, it has to be George. St. Pierre.
Yeah.
I think he appeals to a lot of like middle class white guys. You know.
Well, I think if you're like an MMA purist,
yeah,
I could imagine that would. I can see why you would like him. Yeah,
because he's not.
Makes sense.
He was all about just performing in the octagon. You know, he was business-like outside of it. Obviously, he had to do all that stuff, but at the same time, he wasn't about shit talking and all that.
Yeah.
And he was great. And it's funny seeing him like now compared to other fighters, the younger ones, and he just looks stiff. You know, and it was probably there when he was fighting when he was younger, that sort of stiffness, but his
balls are
but he looks so like ancient now.
Yeah. What do you think would happen in a fight with GSP and Khabib?
Well, they're talking about this, aren't they?
Yeah.
This is one of the ones that they think
he could come out of retirement for.
I think if Khabib beats Tony and Poirier, or if Poirier pulls out and Tony fights Khabib, I think maybe he'll fight GSP and then go off into the distance. That's a tough one, though.
Yeah. Who do you think wins the Poirier Khabib fight? I forgot that was taking place.
Khabib.
I think that could be quite competitive.
I think it's been a while since we saw Khabib, so we're all sort of somewhat forgetting how dominant he is in the cage. You know, it's become rhetoric almost when there's so much time in between the fights. But as soon as he steps in there and puts him on his back, everyone's like, no shit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, fuck.
What a moron I was for thinking that was ever not going to happen. Yeah.
And I think that'll happen with Poirier. Even though Poirier is a beast, I just don't think he has the extra edge in any of his game. Like, he's very well rounded, but he doesn't have anything that's just tips him over to win it in any area. You know,
really? See, I think if he kept the fight on his feet, he would win the fight because he's a far better striker.
But Conor was supposed to be a far better striker than Khabib, and Khabib floored him. Remember, he threw that overhand right.
Yeah, I know.
Even though he was tired, like, that's not going to be a factor with Poirier.
But so I don't think Poirier will have the same concern that he's going to get taken down, because I think his takedown defense is good enough that he will be able to keep it on the feet.
Right.
Whereas Conor's only thinking about the takedown, which is why he got caught, because his hands were going down
and he was tired.
Yeah, and his cardio was
he gassed in
not ideal.
The first 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But
that's a really interesting matchup.
I think it'll be pretty one-sided decision to Khabib. Yeah, and I think if he fights Tony, I'm going to put my money on it now. Tony, 4th round, TKO.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
You hear it now, folks.
Here first.
If I'm completely wrong, come spam me on my page.
Interesting.
Yeah. Who do you think? Well, you think
could be by decision
for Poirier.
Both.
All right. Okay.
Just both. It just seems like the most sort of logical thing. I mean, my heart says, Poirier by some sort of,
flick.
Well, nah, but like 3rd round TKO would be awesome, but it's hard to see past Khabib.
And Poirier's not a big guy. I think he's the same height as me. And Khabib is a monster.
Maybe.
I think he's 5'9".
Poirier's filled out a lot at lightweight. Like, compared to how he was at featherweight.
Of course.
He's actually a big lightweight.
Yeah.
So I don't know how he made the cut.
But
yeah.
Khabib is just that.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't look like he's thick, but he is.
Yeah.
It's like that sort of old farm strength.
I can't remember who it was. It must have been Rogan, but talking about Dan Henderson and saying that, like, when you felt his body, or like he was made of wood. He was just like rock solid.
Mahogany.
Yeah, I can imagine him being like that.
Probably. But I don't think his mind's got left much. He doesn't have much time with his mind in the game, I think.
Yeah, that's probably right. Well, he's now achieved so much. I think when you get to that stage, you lose the fire a bit.
It's going to have an effect.
Yeah.
You know, there's decisions that happen in the fight, and those are all affected by your situation outside of the cage.
Yeah.
And if you're this fighter who's got loads of money, it's very religious as well. So there's not as much drive for all these external things other than your self-discipline.
Precisely.
That's going to wane, you know.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are driven by poverty and sort of things that have happened in their life that are negative. And when you're sort of filling all these in a wall of your sort of personality in life,
yeah,
you know, you're just left with not much else to do.
Very true.
Yes.
So true. So true. Man, we should probably watch your time. It's now like 5:30.
That's great, man. Yeah. I don't want to get a parking ticket.
Yeah,
didn't tell me about that.
I think I had to.
You think in this kind of posh area it'd be free parking for miles?
Nah.
Or you can all afford your bloody tickets.
It's permits, residential permits.
Right, okay.
Or tickets.
Cool.
It's paying about.
Well, it's been great coming on.
Dude,
man.
I've loved it. It's been awesome. It's
really
been very easy to speak to and find out more about you, and just have a fun chat. So
I could hear you trying to tease it out of me. I know you were trying to get it out there, so I don't have to tell it on my podcast anymore. If you want to hear my life story.
Yeah, man, totally. But thanks so much for coming on, dude.
Perfect, man.
Cheers.
Cheers.